In order to actually step into that world of broader capacity and abundance, we need to truly democratize the form of the economic realm.
This is a synchronized moment for an actual humanist socialist politics. And it's not just an ethical demand. We need to recognize that utter zombification, the collapse of the mainstream corporate Democratic Party.
I really struggle to see center and center-left coded institutions also coming up with their own version of a story that I think will make sense for Americans what's happening in this moment right now. What story would you tell about America in the year 2025?
What I would say in response to that is, yeah, stories are for children. Americans need a plan. Americans need solutions.
This formula was electorally successful for a brief period of time, and it matched the proliferation of knowledge workers, brand consultants, economists, professional classes, as well as tech bubbles. That ideology and the conditions that led to it and the compromises that it evoked are over. The point is to give an answer rooted in what I'm calling a cosmopolitan socialism, or a map forward for the left that I think actually synthesizes and transcends these false debates between economics and democracy, truly recognizing that, in fact, this project must be truly global.
People in this class have divided themselves. They say, I'm black and I hate white people. I'm white and I hate black people. I'm Latin American and I hate hillbillies. I'm hillbilly and I hate Indians. So we fight amongst each other. And why? Because they want to keep you to believing that I'm your enemy.
When you go and you look at the radical lineage in the United States, Fred Hampton, incredibly young guy, is articulating solidarity.
What we're saying is that there are white people in the mother country that are for the same types of things that we are for stimulating revolution in the mother country. And we said that we will work with anybody and form coalition with anybody that has revolution on their mind.
Understanding profoundly our interdependence, both to each other and in our broader ecology.
Panthers are here. Panthers are here. For uptown. For anyone who lives in uptown. With brown, green, yellow, purple, or pink. But I say Panthers are here, and you have to tell us what we can do and what we can do together. We come here with our hearts open, you cast to supervise us, where we can be of help to you.
From across cultural and regional groups, not to force a specific culture on society. That doesn't mean you for a second compromise on your values.
We're gonna stop this shit one way or the other if we have to fight with guns. Before you can do that, gotta be some discipline. What I say you wanna do? Okay, the first thing is discipline, man, before you can even control the pig, because you're off you, man. From here, you start out going into the community so the community know, man, what you're doing. Cause see, if the pig off you, Roger, and you be going to the funeral, man, you've been in a casket, and the people in the community don't even know you're dead. You got to have a community back.
This ability to self-access and not exclude anybody in a fundamentalist, fanatical way actually incentivizes the types of self-inquiry and capacity to actually truly transform institutions, individuals, economics, and behaviors and culture. If democratic socialism isn't about building a mass movement and all the complexity that it entails, it's not going to achieve anything except a new section of rhetoric in our politics.
Remember what it means to do mass politics, fighting these big fights against empire, fighting these big fights against capitalism, for your neighbor, for our friends and comrades and brothers and sisters all around the world.
What we need is a cosmopolitan socialism based on real material needs that expresses itself in criticism, art, movement building, and everything else that drives politics. I want people to be reading about Cuba, Russia, Thomas Sankara, anywhere. Taking from historical examples and finding inspiration is incredibly generative and incredibly positive.
You hear a Negro, Charles Howard, making the keynote speech, telling America he feels the dignity of a human being for the first time in his life. Here, now, and you feel proud. rising up in a hall in Philadelphia like a Continental Congress a long time ago. And you're building a platform. People's dreams a hammer, people's needs the wood, and each plank driven home by many hands.
Experiential, global, engaged and acting on and receptive to the world sense. We are global. We learn and move off of everything and contribute back to that. And that is affirmative, that is positive, and it's a better way to be. We need to recognize that along with Bernie Sanders here, the social movements here, Jeremy Corbyn in the UK, and land appropriation in South Africa, Haiti, Ecuador, Chile, the enormous bubbling up of resistance to the neo-fascism and Hindutva of the Modi government. We have a big fight ahead. Victory is far from guaranteed. But there are cracks.
Once a president, now a prisoner. Luis Ignacio Lula da Silva is beginning a 12-year sentence behind bars. Convicted of accepting a beachside apartment from a company seeking government contracts, he and his supporters are continuing to say he's innocent. During an emotional hour-long address on Saturday morning, Lula told crowds that his conviction was unjust, but he'd abide by a court order to turn himself in.
A judicial coup blocked President Lula from running and almost certainly winning election. Due to investigative reporting and international mobilization, he is out of jail, leading in response to the disastrous Bolsonaro regime.
Mr. President, it's an honor to be here, and it's great to come from Brooklyn to visit you, and I'll briefly introduce us, and then we'll get started. So I'm Michael Brooks. I host the very creatively named show, Michael Brooks Show.
It's very interesting, the sort of dynamics here, because there's no wokeness with Lula, but there's also none of this other like residual like patriarchal kind of stuff and nonsense. And he's sitting there and he's like, you know, he's union guy, no bullshitter, clear communicator. And at the end he goes, you know, being a president is like being the mother of a country. And when you're a mother, you have to look out for the weakest kids. And I mean, it was perfectly sensible. It was beautiful. He connected it with the anti-poverty program. And I thought the clarity of that expression is completely missing here. And exactly, I think, what you're talking about. Let's go to Kerala.
Indian state of Kerala is set to declare itself free of extreme poverty. It would be the first Indian state to hit this milestone.
I wish that the left in the United States, and one of the goals of this show is to have a much more genuinely global perspective. And sometimes when we generate movements, there's this idea that we're exporting them versus the sort of the history that, to me, in many ways, you exemplify. One of the reasons I admire your work so much, that this really is a global collaborative endeavor, and it works east, west, north, south. There is a shared working condition that's universal, and there are overlapping trajectories and aspirations, and we can learn from each other. Kerala, to me, is a very striking example of that. A Marxist state, or somewhat Marxist state in India, that has this extraordinary performance above its own nation state, and very relevant to not only the kind of immediate crisis of COVID, but the underlying conditions you're talking about.
I mean, look, it took 100 years for Kerala to build this. It's not just that there's a communist government in power there. You know, this is part of the history of the state, building public action into the culture of Kerala, into the society of Kerala, the importance of public action and so on. I mean, look, the United States had the importance of public action. It was such an important part of US history until the early 20th century.
When Bill walked on the picket line the morning of January 15th, he was fighting for the decent standard of living that Roosevelt had pledged in the Economic Bill of Rights. The right to a job, to food and clothing, to fair prices, to protection against monopolies, the right to a decent home, medical care, a good education, the right to economic security. Bill fought for this new Bill of Rights as part of a mighty CIO struggle against the economic royalists. At the National Labor Management Conference, CIO President Philip Murray had sought tenaciously for recognition of the need for wage increases and of price control. Within a week, 1.5 million CIO workers were on strike. Auto, steel, tankers, communications, farm equipment, all fighting for a decent America. Lynn, Massachusetts, Ontario, California, Fairmont, West Virginia, Fort Wayne, Indiana, Jersey City, Detroit, Pittsburgh, Schenectady, Philadelphia, plant after plant, town after town, from coast to coast, the picket lines grew. Big lines and little.
When you create a society where public action is delegitimized, in the United States, there's been a almost 100-year attack on trade unions, on people's organizations.
The union could not be isolated. Its strike machinery stood up, and Jim Matley's national director of organization for once was satisfied.
When the companies fail to isolate us from the communities, they try to smash us by the use of injunctions. Injunctions is the most reactionary weapon used by employers to break a strike. They have been repudiated by the American people and by Congress through the Norris LaGuardia Act. But employers use the injunctions to mobilize the police power of the state to undermine and break a strike. Even the Army and the Navy has been used for the purpose of breaking strikes. An injunction is an illegitimate offspring of an undemocratic government and reactionary employer in the name of law and order. It leads to violence.
UE locals in Philadelphia and Camden organized a protest parade, an orderly parade, headed by their country's flag, in the hands of a veteran of the German campaign. But when the parade started, trouble began.
And now they've thrown him to the ground.
You want to go to jail? Fine. You got it.
The pressure of the knee on my back and his hand on my neck, I felt like, is this it for me?
Said later in excuse that the police lost their heads. They certainly lost them in an organized manner. This is the result of having irresponsible officials in the city halls, the state capitals, and in Washington.
There's no mediation between the people and their frustrations and the elites.
First in a hospital? How many people died in the hospital but who were first in a nursing home? How many people do you presume died? Nursing home deaths happen nationwide. Democratic states, Republican states. We get a request letter from the Department of Justice. They were told, and they knew, and we gave precedence. Yes, because that's how it works. I don't really care what people say about me. I'm not going to allow people to lie to the people of New York without answering.
New York Governor Andrew Cuomo took some blame for a scandal surrounding the state's nursing homes on Monday, after a state report that COVID-19 deaths among them were under as much as half. Cuomo acknowledged his office should not have withheld.
They said staying home would save lives, but you can't stay home if you don't have one.
My name is Zahran Kwame Mamdani, and that was my family's story. In 1972, they were evicted and expelled from their home in Uganda because of the color of their skin. We immigrated to this city when I was 7, and today I work as a foreclosure prevention counselor. I'm here to talk today about the housing crisis across our state. All across Queens, I see the pain my family felt then in the faces of my clients now. Immigrant families forced to choose between their hospital bills and their mortgage, feeding their kids or keeping the lights on. Yet while my clients struggle, luxury developers continue to determine who deserves to live in Astoria. And if you're not getting priced out, you're getting pushed out.
In a place like Kerala, almost everybody is a member of either a trade union, a women's organization, youth organization, student organization, cooperatives, and so on. It's a highly organized society, so that when a crisis hits a place like Kerala, public action kicks in immediately. Unions come out there, they start feeding people, they build sinks in public, they do all kinds of things. In the United States, when you have a crisis, the magnitude of this pandemic, you don't see the trade unions doing anything. Where have the trade unions been to bring medicines to the elderly? Where have the trade unions been to feed the homeless, feed the poor? You just don't see them anywhere. So let's talk about that. Let's advance the conversation. I'm more interested in that than in saying, oh, the whole debate, the whole struggle has been diverted by the elites and so on. I don't care about the elites. I don't care about Joe Biden. I don't care about the Democratic Party. They interest me nothing, because they are going to be disappointing always. That's not the way to think. I don't care about their blackwashing. I'm more interested in how do we advance the movement? How do young people who have entered into a movement, often for the first time in their lives, have been politicized? How do we show them? How do we, give them our sense of history and say, what's important?